Hello everyone, and welcome to your 71st Cocoa programming tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to be talking about how we can customize our AppKit views similarly to how you would customize a UI view from UIKit. So if you're coming from UIKit, you probably know how to customize UI view. It's pretty simple. You just set something on UI view, or quite commonly the layer that backs the UI view itself. And in UIKit, this is pretty simple because basically UI view is just a small shim around a CALayer. Now in AppKit, that's not really the case, and NSView holds the right to change certain aspects of the layer without your knowledge. And there are also just certain ways that are more efficient or more performant in updating the layer if you're trying to do certain things like corner radius or background color or border width and color, for example. And we're just going to be talking about two different approaches that we can take to using AppKit and getting sort of these advantages that you would normally get from UIKit. So the two approaches we're going to be talking about, one is using NSBox. And NSBox is a built-in control for AppKit, and it allows a lot of these customizations that you might want to do, like simple background color and other corner radius stuff. If you're looking for a little more customizability, you might have to subclass NSView, and we're going to talk about the way that you can subclass NSView to make it sort of similar to UI views in that regard. So that's what we're going to do in this tutorial. So to start out, make a new AppKit project, and we're using nibs for this, but you can use a storyboard, it really doesn't matter. We're just going to be creating two custom views. So the first one that we're going to be adding is a box, and there's two different options. We want to just drag out this custom box option. They're both just NSBox, but one just sets it up in a nice way that makes it easy for what we're trying to do in this tutorial. So drag out a custom box. I'm going to make it a default width and height here, so I'm just going to make it 175 by 175. I'm going to drag that over here. All right, and then I'm going to also add another view. So this time I'm just going to create a totally custom view. So you can type in NSView, drag out a custom view, and we're going to make this the same width and height here. And let's add a few constraints. So I'm going to add left and right, and then I'm going to also add the ability for aspect ratio to be the same on both of these objects. And then, how do I want to do this? So the box, I want to keep them the same width, so I'm just going to drag and create equal widths between the two. And then lastly, they're both going to be, vertically centered in the container. And that's that. So if I go ahead and run this, I should see that hopefully my constraints all worked out there. Good, that's what I want. Okay, so let's start with the easy one, how we can customize NSBox. Well, if we just go over to the little customization section here in Interface Builder, we can see that we can do a bunch of things. So the box type, we can switch between primary or custom. Primary is like a specific frame that you can use in AppKit. I don't know if that many people really use standard NSBox anymore, but the useful one for our purposes is the custom mode. The border type really doesn't matter, I don't think. I'm pretty sure they're all just deprecated. The real only difference is that you could have none or any of the others. The border width, so we could say that we want a 10 for border width. Let's do 10 for corner radius. Then we could also set colors. So let's make the border maybe just system blue. And then we can also set a fill color, which I'm going to just use, let's try, what do I want to do? Maybe just grid color, that might be good. So let's just use grid color for our example there. And there you go. So you have now a custom NSBox that does a lot of similar things to what a UI view would do, at least for very basic customizations. And yeah, the nice thing about this is that it'll handle dark mode and all that stuff with the system colors as well. So if you switch between light and dark, the grid color, for example, would switch to the lighter mode that it would be in light mode. All right, so let's talk about what we would do to make our custom view do something similarly. And our custom view, we're going to go ahead and make a new class here. So just Command N, new Cocoa class. I'm going to call this view subclass of NSView. And we can go ahead here. And the first thing we're going to do is delete the draw code because we don't want the draw code. We want to go down the update layer path. And so if you want basically you want to have as much control as you can over your backing view, then you can do two things. What you want to do is first opt into the update layer. So what you do is you override this property or function once update layer, and this you simply return true. And if you return true on that, then it assumes that you have implemented the second function called update layer. So what update layer does is, as the method kind of suggests, it allows you to update the layer. So I'm just going to get the layer property off of our NSView, and it's optional on NSView, so that's why I'm just doing this guard let. And then I can set some basic things. So I could say, let's just pick background color, and then we can get the grid color, CG color, because CALayer. And if I go ahead, actually, before I do that, I gotta assign this class. So we can go back to our nib here under our custom view. So with this guy selected, we'll change the class to be view. Perfect. So let's go ahead and run this. And now we can see our view is actually that color that I assigned matching this grid color on the left. So hooray, we got it to work. So what else do we have here? Well, we can do a lot of things to improve this. And the important thing about when you're doing this approach with a NSView subclass is that you don't want to update the layer outside of update layer. So if you opt into wanting an update layer or wants update layer, then you're really stuck to having update layer be the place where you update the layer. And it probably works to do it in other places, but it is suggested at least that you do all your work in update layer. So an approach to doing this is we could actually add our own properties for things that we think are missing for customizing the layer. So let's start with just background color, for example. So we can do an NS color. We'll make it optional just because I think this guy accepts optional colors. And then what we want to do is on did set, we want to tell our view to update itself. And to do that, we just say needs display, and we set that to true. So what this means is that anytime we update our background color, it's going to notify our view that, hey, there is a change that was made that is going to affect the display of this view, and you need to update it. And so on the next event loop, when we actually go to draw this view, it will know that it needs to redraw itself effectively. And so it's very important to include the did set, or else you're just assigning a property and the view is never going to know that it has to redraw itself. So let's go ahead and replace this guy with our new background color property. And what we're going to do is we can actually let this view be visible to Interface Builder by doing a few things here. So first, you just say that the class is going to be IB designable, and any properties you want to be allowed to be changed in Interface Builder, you can just say they are IB inspectable. And with this simple change here, we can go into our main menu, nib, and under the customization section for this, you'll see now there's the option to set a color. So we want the background color to be that grid color that we had on the other guy. And if we run this, all should work out. So as you can see, we now have this nice view where we have this background color property, and the view itself will do all the work to actually update the layer that is backing it. All right, let's do a really quick kind of run through of just fixing some properties up here. So we want to have, what are some other ones? So corner radius and CG color, or no, CG float. We want our border width. Actually, let's just do border color first. So that can be an NS color, and then border width, which is going to be a CG float. Give that a default of 0, give this a default of 0, and let's finish setting up our layer. So we have our corner radius, layer dot border color gets border color dot CG color, and layer dot border width gets border width. Perfect. So that's all the good stuff that we have there. And I want to just point out a few things that you're actually getting as a benefit to this over simply assigning, for example, CG color. So with the color actually being part of the view itself, if you were changing your view between light and dark mode, CG color doesn't have a concept of automatically changing for dark or light mode. It just is a color. And NS color really is the only object that can understand these changes. So by holding onto the NS color on the view directly, anytime the system switches between light and dark mode, if you're using a system color like a grid color or text color or whatever it might be, it will automatically change the NS color, and it will also update the, it'll call update layer just as a function of updating the window, and it will take the new color. So this is another important aspect that you would miss out on if you were just directly assigning the CG color to the CALayer itself. All right, so with that all done, let's hop back over to our main menu nib and just add a few more things. So we'll just make it look like our box. We want the border color to be the blue, and also just the same border width. And now if we go ahead and run this, we can see that we have two very identical looking boxes. But there are some differences that I want to quickly point out here before we dive into some animation. So if we look at these two boxes, they might look the same, but if we dive into the view debugger, we will see that they are not exactly the same. So here is our view hierarchy. I'm going to trim back some of the back stuff here. All right, and if I just look at the difference, so on the right here we have our view subclass, and you'll notice that it's just one tile or one layer essentially deep, right? It is one view on the hierarchy. NSBox is different in that it has actually three sort of separate layers. So the back layer is the NSBox itself. Then there's this sort of middle layer, which is a private view that's inside of the NSBox, which is this underscore NSBox custom view. And then the front one is just whatever view is assigned to the custom view property on NSBox. What's nice about this is that you can actually have the content be within the confines of this content view. So you could assign the content view, and the content view will always be within sort of that, if you update the border width, the content view will be within that border width. Whereas you would not get the same if you were just using this custom subclass that we have for our view on the right. So there are trade-offs for each one, but again, my preference is generally just go with NSBox if you can. It just has a lot of stuff already baked into it, and don't try to reinvent the wheel with AppKit if you don't have to. Anyway, that's just something to note about the differences that are not obvious from this visual in front of you. All right, now the last thing that I want to dive into is animation. And to do this, I'm actually going to make a little button here that will allow me to trigger this animation. So let's call this animate. And I'm just going to pin this to this, and we want it horizontal. Perfect. Now, let's, in our app delegate, I'm going to set up a few things. So we want an IB action, and we're going to call this animate. And there needs to be sender param, and we'll add to that in a little bit. Then we want some outlets for our properties that we have. So we have box, NSBox, and we have a view, which is view. All right. Now in this, actually before I do that, let's hook these things up. So let's not waste too much time here. We want to hook up the animate, and then the delegate should have an outlet to the box and an outlet to the view. Perfect. Okay, so what do we want to do on the animation? Well, the animate is going to set up an animation context. We're going to run an animation group, and the context, we want to turn on a few things. So we want to allow implicit animation, and we want to set a duration, and I'm just going to make it 1 second by default. And I'm going to first demonstrate how, actually, let's get a value for what I want to change. So what I'm going to do on this animation is I'm going to change the border width, and just, it's just an easy thing to see for animation purposes. So let's get a random thing here, CG float. So we're going to get a random number from 0 to 40, or 39, I guess. And then we want to animate the box. So with AppKit, if you want to perform an animation, you always need to go through the animator proxy, at least if you're directly animating the view. So you just say box.animator, and then you change the value that you want. So in this case, I want to change the border width, and I will set value on that. So let's go ahead and run this and just make sure that I haven't screwed anything up, which is always quite possible. Okay, well, you can see that there's some different changes there. I'm going to change that animation speed so it doesn't take forever, but maybe 0.5 is a little bit better. But you get the idea. We can animate our box border width by clicking on different values like this. All right, very good. So let's try to do the same now for our view. And this is where things are going to get a little bit difficult. So if I go ahead and try to do the same approach where I change the border width, and you would think that this might work perfectly fine. However, if I approach this and I try to run it, we are actually going to blow up. So the reason for this is specific to Swift. You probably would have never noticed this if you wrote the code in Objective-C. That works in a lot of cases. But what we want to do here is, because this property was defined without being dynamic, it is basically going to be a static property. And this is not happy with the proxy that the animator is going to use. It expects that it can basically probably do it some dynamic dispatch. And because of that, we need to add the dynamic property to the particular property that we want to be able to animate. So we can just say dynamic border width. And now if we come back, we can try this again. And let's make this a little bit bigger. So interestingly enough, still no animation. And the reason for this is because there are no animations by default defined by NSView. And the way we change this is we override a different method here, which is the animation for key. And we simply want to return a particular animation. A very simple one is just the CA basic animation. And we can just make that our animation for all things if we want. So here we'll call animate, and you can see that we are now properly animating the border width on our view. Just one thing to note about animations in general, it's probably not a good idea to just override all of your animatable properties like this. It's probably slightly unexpected behavior. So what you can do is you can test for the values. So we could switch on the key, and if it's equal to the property that we want, in this case border width, then we could return a CA basic animation. Otherwise, we probably want to just do whatever the super implementation is. So we could just say super.animation for key and pass the key along like that. And we should still be able to see the animations with the view, like so. Anyway, I hope that covers most of the ways that you might want to customize AppKit views for AppKit. And yeah, so the two main approaches, we have NSBox and our custom subview or subclass of NSView. My suggestion would be try to stick with NSBox if you can. It's probably the better option, just because you don't have to muck around with trying to make your own implementation of these kind of things. But there is some cool things you can customize. You can totally customize the behavior of the animations that you would get if you change the animations. Obviously, you are limited in certain ways, right? This isn't NSView, and it's not going to be anytime soon. So it really is, you do have to do a lot of things yourself to kind of get the thing that you want to have happen. But that is the gist of how you can have NSView type configuration on your AppKit views. If you like this video, please like the button in the bottom. Add my channel to the bell system on YouTube, and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you guys next week.